Hey guys, it's Victoria and welcome back to FemmeHead. Today I want to share some breastfeeding lessons I've learned from Theo that I will be carrying forward with me into this next breastfeeding, pumping, milk making experience. And I'm hoping I fare a little bit better, but one thing I learned from Theo was if breastfeeding doesn't work out, if pumping doesn't work out, and you have to give your baby formula is not the end of the world. I wish I could have just let go of that pressure and stress in the beginning because there's enough mom guilt to go around. I went through and I just brainstormed every piece of advice I have when it comes to breastfeeding and pumping. It's not in any particular order. These are the little tidbits that I learned and I want to share them with you. So the first thing is start pumping at that 2-week mark and building a milk stash, regardless of whether you're going to be spending all your time with your baby and you don't need a stash. That's definitely what I thought going into my experience with Theo was I'm going to be with him all the time. I'm very grateful for that. If someone else is going to be watching him while Mike and I go on a date, I'll just pump beforehand and I don't need some big freezer stash. So I had I wish I knew 12 to 16 bags in my freezer and 2 to 4 ounce bags, I would say. What I learned is your supply is not always guaranteed to last a full year. And I knew that. I knew people struggled with supply. I knew people struggled with latch, tongue tie, lip tie issues. But it seemed like it was going so smooth for me, so I just never made it a priority. And then he got sick, my milk supply suffered, and I started pumping less and less and less. I stopped creating enough milk to feed him, which is fine, but I didn't have a stash to fall back on more than I think, what did I say, 12-ish bags? And so I had to give him formula, which is not the end of the world. Don't get me wrong, formula is not the end of the world. And I will definitely be kinder to myself going into this next experience if I do have to give this baby formula, which I almost just kind of expect. With this baby, I'm just telling myself not worst case scenario, but these are all the ways in which things can go wrong or not go perfectly, and that's okay. At the 2-week mark, I plan to start pumping once a day in the morning after their feed and just building a little freezer stash. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but yes, build a freezer stash starting at 2 weeks. Don't go longer than 3 hours between breastfeeding or pumping unless it is overnight and they are sleeping that stretch of time. But if it's during the day, breastfeed or pump every 3 hours religiously. I know some people will go 4 hours or 6 hours in between, but I think that is how I messed up my supply, and it happened in England. I'm pretty sure. So we went to England, not this most recent December, but the December before that, so December 2019, and Theo was 4 months old. Was really good on the plane and everything about pumping, because I had to pump the milk, fortify it, and feed him. And so I was really good at that, but there were a handful of times, whether we were out on really long hikes or we were on a sightseeing bus in London, where I knew I was supposed to be pumping then, but there was no good way to pump, or I told myself there's no good way to pump. But on the bus, I could have been Michael, hold him, I've got to pump real quick, and just pumped under my shirt. And I definitely over time came up with a better system of storing milk out and about. And then on the hike, I should have just been yo, we gotta take a 15-minute break because I have to pump. So I don't want to inconvenience anyone else, but I will definitely be I gotta pump. And so yeah, just definitely don't go longer than 3 to 4 hours between pumping sessions or breastfeeding sessions unless it's overnight and they are sleeping longer stretches at night. The Medela manual hand pump, I don't know the exact name for it. I will link the things I talked about down below, but this is one of my pumping must-haves. Regardless of if you're exclusively breastfed or exclusively pumping or a combination of both, if there's a circumstance in which you're going to have to pump when you're out and about, or if that would make your life easier, I cannot recommend this manual pump enough. It came in so handy once we got it. On the plane, if date night, if I needed to go out to the car real quick and pump, or it was just so convenient and small. You could put it in your bag. I could literally be pumping right now and you wouldn't be able to tell. It was just so quick and convenient. And I felt like I was able to control the suction and pressure on it so well that it was very, very comfortable for me to pump, and that's how I ended up pumping. I kind of gave up on my electric pump and used the manual pump, which I don't know if is like the best idea, and I don't recommend it. Like, I'm definitely going to try to learn how to use my electric pump much better this time for like date nights, or if you're like out and about or at meetings or something quick to where you can't have your whole setup with, you know, your bra and a plug-in, planes, in the car, anything. Like, get a manual hand pump. They're like $30. So worth it. Have an easy little cooler to store milk. Let me go grab mine. Most of my like pumping, breastfeeding stuff is up in Theo's room right now in his closet, and he's sleeping up there, so I'm not gonna grab it. And I can just link it down below. This is the packet cooler, and so it's just a cooler that you like keep in your freezer. It has ice packs built in, and then when you need to go out and about, you just throw this in your diaper bag or in your purse. It like opens up, and it's just such a great size for a couple bottles of milk. I got at like the tail end of pumping, like right before COVID hit, and then we just didn't go anywhere anyway, so I didn't need a cooler. This is great to just have in your bag, a place to store your pumped milk once you've pumped it. So if you're going on a date night, throw this and your pump and some like empty bottles into your bag, and you're good to go. After giving birth to Theo while we were still in the hospital, I had 2 different lactation consultants visit me in my room. Both of them just kind of like talked to me about like, how's it going? You have any questions? And it was going smoothly, but I wish I would have been like, you know, he's scheduled to eat like an hour or, you know, 2 hours. Can you swing back around so you can just see him like latch and eat and tell me what you think? And so I wish I would have had them put like visual eyes on how he was like latching and eating. And that's something I will do this time. So it's pretty standard for a lactation consultant to visit you at the hospital. Try to do it when they can see the baby eat. Use a Hako or some sort of manual pump. You could even use the Medela pump to ease the engorgement. Don't want to pump in those first 2 weeks when your milk's coming in. Your boobs are gonna be just super engorged, and you don't wanna mess with them too much, but you can relieve a little bit of that like pressure and engorgement, because I know with Theo, he really only ate on like one side at a time, especially when my milk came in, because his tummy was so small, my boobies were so big and so full of milk, which I'm so grateful for. But he would like relieve the pressure on one side, and then this one would just like throb, you know? So when it was unbearable, and I only had to do it a couple times, when it was unbearable and super painful, I would just attach like a manual pump long enough to relieve the pressure, but not like fully drain the boob or anything. Like, I think I would get like around 1 ounce, and that just helps you get through that phase of your milk supply balancing out without messing up your supply and creating an oversupply. I said this before, but I will say it again. Formula is not the end of the world. You are not a failure if you have to give your baby formula. I am 100% a believer. Fed is best. Believe I was that before having Theo and before everything with Theo, but I still had this like pressure on myself, you know, and this guilt of not being able to produce enough milk because like breast is best and formula is expensive, and I just really got down on myself, and I preferred breastfeeding so much more. It was just much more of an enjoyable experience. It was so much easier for me. Even though I loved breastfeeding, formula is not the end of the world. Burp your baby between boobs, after boobs, especially when they're like little and they just struggle with like gas and like farting and burping and pooping and all that. They just need help doing that sometimes. As they get older, they might not burp after every feeding, but especially when they're little itty bitty, burp them. Going kind of along with that, hold them upright after you feed them to help with any sort of like reflux spit up. Theo was a reflux baby. It wasn't super terrible, but I definitely had to hold him up for like 15 to 30 minutes after each feed. If you do kind of have like a refluxy baby or a baby that will get like uncomfortable after they eat, you really want to try to avoid putting them in a car seat and like going somewhere after you feed them, because just that position doesn't feel good on their bellies. Always have a snack and a full thing of water within arm's reach, whether you're breastfeeding or pumping, because both make you ravenous. There's nothing worse than like getting him latched and then realizing my water was like where I couldn't reach it, and Michael either wasn't home or wasn't around or within earshot to hand it to me, because you get like instant cotton mouth and you're like, oh, all I want is water. So just make sure you have lots of water and snacks. Get a hands-free bra that works for your pump. It took me a while to get a hands-free bra, and I honestly didn't get one until he was like 4 months old, and I had to start like pumping exclusively while he was sick. But then I got a Medela bra, and I thought they were kind of universal. I learned they're not. Trying to get my Spectra like parts into and attached to that Medela bra was so difficult, and I think that just made the experience so much more unenjoyable. So get yourself a hands-free pumping bra that works with your specific pump that you have. If you pump several times throughout the day, so once you go back to work, or if you're exclusively pumping, even if your baby's home with you, you can store your pump parts in a Ziploc bag in the fridge throughout the day. So instead of having to wash all the little intricate pieces after every single pump session, you can just wash them once a day and keep them in the fridge throughout the rest of the day. So I would just take my whole bra situation, because I couldn't get the pump parts out, and I put that all in like a gallon Ziploc bag in the fridge and then just wash them once a day. And then I would sterilize every couple days or like once a week, just kind of depended. Figure out your pump settings. I've been having a lot of conversations with my sister and my friend right now because she was having issues with her pump settings and not being able to pump enough. It should not hurt when you pump or when you breastfeed. Sometimes there is initial like discomfort, like either when the baby's latching or like when your milk's letting down, like there's like a tingly sensation. But once you're like well into breastfeeding or pumping, like it should not hurt. And I found pumping really uncomfortable, sometimes painful, and I think it's because my settings were all jacked up. So lactation consultants often know about this and will help you find the best settings for your particular pump, how old your baby is, and your boobies. So you want to make sure you have the right settings, that you have the right flange size, that you have the right suction. One thing we recently discovered because of my friend is you have to change your pump settings as your baby ages. I did not know that with Theo. I just thought like once whatever worked for my boobs at, you know, like when he was 4 months old would work when he was 8 months old. How your baby eat changes as they get older. Like an 8-month-old baby is not going to breastfeed the same way that a newborn is. And I never even thought of that. So you definitely want to learn what pump settings you need for how old your baby is and all that good stuff. Like, who would have known? One thing that I found that helped a lot for me was massaging my boobs at the end of a pump session. I have little boobies, and so the flange covers like a good part of my boob. So I would just kind of use the flange, go like this with my pump essentially. You just kind of want to massage. Oh, that actually feels good. You just want to massage like around your boob to just kind of like massage all the milk out. And I would always get a little bit more that way. So I definitely recommend trying a nice little massage at the end of your pump session. If you're struggling with supply issues, you can do a power hour in the morning. I will try to link some information below to that. There's a couple different ways to do it, but essentially you pump on and off over an hour, and that's just supposed to kind of mimic a baby cluster feeding and send those signals to your body to create more milk. Just because a bottle is marketed towards breastfed babies doesn't mean that it will be good for your breastfed baby. I got the Tomo bottles for Theo. I got 2 of them, and he just never took to them. And they were supposed to be really good for breastfed babies because they kind of have that boob shape, but he ended up taking to the Dr. Bronner's bottles the best. Don't buy a full kit of, you know, one particular bottle until you know that's the bottle that your baby's going to take. So just get like one bottle of a couple different brands and make sure they're like different shapes and sizes of nipples. And also you want to change the nipple flow depending on how old your baby is. Once your baby is like a few weeks old, I would recommend to start introducing a bottle, even if it's just like once a week or once every couple days. And it's just like one feed on like one random day. And it does work best sometimes if someone else gives them the bottle, because they get so used to liking the boobies that they'll be like, what is this crap, mom? Like, I know your boobs are right there, give them to me. If you ever want to leave your baby and not have to like rush home to get back for their feeding, or leave someone else that's watching them in a predicament where they can't feed them and the baby's really, really fussy, slowly introduce a bottle before you're going to need it. And it's kind of like pumping and building a stash. Even if you say like, I'm always going to be with my baby, you're not always going to be with your baby. And it's really important to let them figure out a bottle, even if they never have to use it. Knowing that they can take a bottle is such just a relief for mom. Oh, but if you do leave a bottle of milk for your baby, you want to make sure that you're pumping that bottle. So if your baby's gonna eat at 2 o'clock, make sure that you're pumping at 2 o'clock or like around that time. You don't want to skip a pump session just because you're not breastfeeding your baby. Goes back to that, don't go more than like 3 or 4 hours without pumping or breastfeeding. Okay, pump milk is good at room temperature for 4 hours. It's good in the fridge for 4 days. It's good in the freezer for 6 months. And I think it's good in a deep freeze for up to like 12 months. But I had a magnet, I believe, for a while. Or there's like little things online that you can download and you can just tape it up on your fridge so everyone knows like milk is good for this long and you do not want to mess around with precious pumped breast milk. And the same goes with formula. Like, yes, it's not like the liquid gold, but it's expensive. Once your baby drinks for a bottle, that bottle, you have 2 hours to finish it. So say they drank 3 of the 4 ounces, you have, until the end of that hour, 2 hour mark to get them to finish drinking it, or it has to go down the drain. I know some people will say like, oh, save it for a milk bath or this. It's sad when they don't finish an ounce or whatever it is and they can't drink it. Once you bring frozen or refrigerated breast milk to room temperature, they have 2 hours to finish it. And you don't ever want to refreeze thawed breast milk. You never want to mix warm, freshly pumped breast milk with refrigerated breast milk. You want to bring the milks to the same temperature before you combine them. So say you have a bag of pumped milk in your fridge that isn't quite enough to put in your freezer, and so you're kind of adding to it throughout the day. You want to take whatever freshly pumped milk and just put the entire bottle in the fridge, wait till that cools down to the same temperature as the milk in the storage bag, and then add it in. And if you're having any issues with pumping or breastfeeding, visit a lactation consultant. Sometimes they can just answer your questions over the phone if you're not able to get in, or coronavirus. I wonder if coronavirus is still as big of a thing when this video goes out. I hope not. I hope it's calmed down some. I need some like normalcy. There's so many lessons that I've learned from my experience with Theo, and I'm so grateful for them. And I'm very hopeful that this time breastfeeding and pumping and just my milk supply goes better, which I'll keep you updated on how it is progressing over the first year of life. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye!